Welcome, viewers, to Bodhi Unified Flow. I'm Dr. Maramuthu, your host. Here, we simplify complexity and amplify performance. In this explainer, we're going to dig into a really fundamental problem in project delivery, the big clash between traditional and lean project management, and more importantly, why those conventional methods so often seem to fail in our complex modern world.
So, let's kick things off with a question that I bet has crossed your mind more than once. You know the drill, right? You've got this perfectly crafted plan, the Gantt chart is a work of art, the budget's been signed off, on paper, everything looks amazing. And yet, the project still goes over budget, blows past its deadline, or even worse, fails to deliver what the customer actually wanted. It's a super common, super frustrating story. The reason, a lot of the time, isn't your team or your resources, it's the very philosophy you're using to manage the work in the first place.
So here's how we're going to break it down today. We'll start by looking at that traditional blueprint, what it is and, why it so often falls apart. Then we'll introduce a much more powerful framework, something called the TFV theory, which is really the key to unlocking the lean playbook. And we'll finish up by helping you figure out how to choose the right style for your work. Our goal here is pretty simple. By the time we're done, you won't just know what these approaches are, you'll get the crucial why behind them. Okay, let's dive right in. All right, first things first. We have to understand the foundation of, most project management that's still being used today. Even with all the talk about new methods, the DNA of traditional management is still deeply embedded in how so many companies work. And it's all built around one single, powerful, yet incomplete idea. So, at its heart, traditional management is based on what's called the transformation view. Think of it as the classic industrial age way of looking at work. You take inputs, things like materials, information, labor, and you transform them into outputs, a final product, a new app, a finished building. Now, as researchers like Laurie Koskela have pointed out, this view is really, really good at one thing, figuring out all the individual tasks you need to do to get the job done. It's all about breaking a huge goal down into a simple checklist of activities. And this transformation view naturally leads to a very specific kind of management playbook. In this world, the master plan is king. Success is literally measured by how perfectly we stick to that original plan. So managers spend all their time looking for any little deviation, any variance from the budget and schedule, and their main job is to yank things back into line. Each task is optimized by itself, with the assumption that if every single task is done efficiently, then the whole project must be efficient. It all creates this top-down command and control structure where information flows one way, from the top down. And it's all built on a fragile belief in predictability. But what happens when reality decides not to follow the plan? Well, this is where the cracks in the foundation of traditional project management really start to show. And trust me, they run deep. The fundamental problem here is this massive mismatch between assumption and reality. See, traditional methods were built for a stable, predictable world, a world where requirements are perfectly understood from day one, where supplies show up exactly on schedule, and people are just waiting around ready to work the second you need them. But come on, that's not the world any of us actually live in, right? Project reality is messy. It's full of uncertainty, last-minute changes from the client, unexpected delays, and all the complex ways that tasks end up depending on each other. TPM treats a project like a script that everyone must follow, but real life is constant improvisation. And hey, this isn't some new, radical idea. Researchers Laurie Koskela and Greg Howell said it bluntly way back in 2002. They said the whole theory behind traditional project management is just obsolete. It's based on a flawed idea of how work actually happens, and a totally outdated definition of what it even means to be in control. Trying to force a chaotic, dynamic project into a rigid plan? That isn't control. It's just a constant and ultimately losing battle against reality. Now here's the real kicker. The true cost of this transformation-only view is everything it makes invisible. Because it only focuses on the work tasks, it completely hides all the non-value-adding activities. All the time your team spends just waiting for a decision from another department, or all the rework they have to do because of a miscommunication weeks ago, the time wasted moving people and equipment around. Traditional systems don't see these as flaws in the system. They just see them as random, unfortunate problems. But in reality, this is massive, systemic waste that is silently killing your project's performance. And TPM has no way to even see it, let alone fix it. So, if the traditional theory is broken, what's the alternative? Well, we need a better, more complete theory of production. We need a more robust philosophy for how work actually gets done.
The solution comes from expanding our perspective. The transformation flow value theory, or TFV for short, doesn't say the transformation is wrong. It just says it's incomplete. It argues the transformation is just one of 3 critical dimensions we absolutely have to manage. To get the whole picture and to truly be in control of a project, we need to be looking through all 3 of these lenses at the same time. And this table here, this lays it all out perfectly. That first row, transformation, that's the traditional view we've been talking about. Its goal is just to get the work done. But TFV theory adds 2 more crucial layers. The second is the flow view. This completely rethinks the project, not as a bunch of separate tasks, but as a continuous flow of work. And its main goal? To eliminate waste, all that invisible, non-value-adding stuff we just talked about. And finally, there's the value view. This sees the project as a process for creating value for the customer. Its main goal is to eliminate value loss, making sure that what we're building is exactly what the customer needs and wants. Traditional management lives and dies in that first row. A complete theory sees all 3. We can boil this whole powerful theory down into a really simple, actionable mantra. 1. You still have to see the transformation. You've got to understand the actual work. But then, 2. You have to actively manage the flow. Your focus shifts to making the whole process smoother, faster, and more reliable. And throughout it all, 3. You must deliver the value. Keep your eyes on the real prize, making sure the customer is happy. It's a huge shift from asking, did we follow the plan, to did we eliminate waste and deliver what the customer wanted? Now, when we take these principles from the TFV theory and put them into practice, what we get is a completely new and way more effective playbook. This approach is called Lean Project Management, and it's a true paradigm shift in how we get projects done. Lean Project Management is simply the practical application of TFV theory. It stops seeing a project as this unique, one-off thing and starts seeing it as a temporary production system. Now, that little change in framing is incredibly powerful. It means we can bring in decades of learning from modern manufacturing to improve how we deliver projects, focusing like a laser on maximizing value for the customer while systematically hunting down and eliminating every single piece of waste in our process. So let's put them side by side, because the contrast is really night and day. Look at the goal. Traditional PM wants conformance to a plan. Lean wants the reliable delivery of value. The focus shifts from optimizing single tasks to optimizing the whole workflow from start to finish. Control isn't about punishing people for deviating from a baseline anymore. It's about minimizing waste and smoothing out variability. And maybe the biggest shift of all, change is no longer a threat we have to avoid. It's an opportunity to learn and get better. This naturally changes the management style from top-down control to a real, collaborative partnership. Now, after hearing all that, you might be thinking, okay, so traditional project management is just bad, right? We should get rid of it. Well, not so fast. The reality is a little more nuanced. The key isn't to declare one style the winner, but to understand what kind of environment each approach was designed for. See, it's all about matching the management style to the project itself. A traditional waterfall-style approach can actually work just fine in a super predictable environment. If your requirements are truly locked in, if the tech is mature and there's very little uncertainty, then yeah, a detailed upfront plan can be a pretty efficient way to get things done. But the second you introduce complexity, uncertainty, and changing requirements, which, let's be honest, describes most projects today, that traditional blueprint just shatters. In these dynamic environments, lean isn't a nice-to-have. It is absolutely essential for survival. Its focus on being adaptive, collaborative, and always learning is exactly what you need to navigate the chaos and actually deliver value. All right, let's bring this all together. Here are the key things I want you to walk away with from our discussion today. If you only remember a few things, make it these. First, traditional project management is built on an incomplete theory, that transformation-only view, which makes it really fragile in the face of complexity. Second, it fails because that narrow focus makes it blind to the real project killers, waste, variability, and anything that interrupts the flow of work. Third, the TFV theory gives us a much more complete and robust model for managing any kind of production. And finally, lean project management is how you put that powerful theory into practice, creating systems that are actually built for the reality of modern projects. With this framework in mind, you can now go back and look at your own projects with a much more critical eye, looking beyond just the plan to see the actual flow of value. I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about your own projects, your own company's management style. Are you using a rigid blueprint that's designed to follow a pre-drawn path no matter what happens on the journey?
Or are you using an adaptive GPS, something that is constantly reevaluating the conditions to find the best possible path to your destination in real time? One assumes the map is perfect. The other knows the territory is always changing.
For those of you who really want to geek out and dive deeper, these are some of the foundational academic works that we referenced in putting this explainer together. They provide a much deeper look into the theories we've touched on today. Thank you for joining us here at Bodhi Unified Flow, where we simplify complexity and amplify performance.